After losing to Tommy Fury, Jake Paul decided he will take the big risk of fighting another retired MMA fighter.
Tommy
The fighter of choice is Nate Diaz. After Nate Diaz's last win over Tony Ferguson and his contract ending with the UFC, Nate Diaz decided to go into boxing and fight Jake Paul. I do not think this matchup will be fair at all for Nate Diaz, and I think we all know that. It's pretty obvious that Nate Diaz is doing this for the payday. And there's nothing wrong with a payday, but I do not think it's worth getting more CTE than he already has and potentially losing the fight badly just for the payday.
Payday, you want payday?
This matchup stylistically is not fair at all, and in this video I'll be going over why Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz is not a fair matchup. One of the primary reasons why the proposed matchup between Jake Paul and Nate Diaz presents a significant challenge for Diaz lies in the extreme contrast in their boxing experience. While Jake has put his all and immersed himself in the world of boxing over the past few years, Nate Diaz has primarily concentrated on the diverse discipline of MMA. Although Diaz's striking ability within the realm of MMA are commendable, it is best to note that they have not been exclusively refined and fine-tuned within the context of professional boxing. There are many different aspects of MMA striking than boxing, such as timing, distance, and coordination. Paul has been able to immerse himself in the complexities of the sport, mastering the nuances of footwork, head movement, and punch selection. This concentrated focus has provided him with a deep understanding of the tactics and strategies employed in boxing matches, giving him an edge over Diaz, whose training has been divided across various aspects of MMA. Well, it's pretty obvious, but it still should be pointed out. Jake is notorious for fighting retired out of their prime MMA fighters. For example, Askren, Woodley 2 times, Anderson Silva, and now Nate Diaz. And the one time he does fight Tommy Fury, a well-adversed and experienced fighter in the field of boxing, and is around the same age as Paul, Paul loses the fight, so he decides to go back to retired MMA fighters to regain his confidence. Nate Diaz has been fighting in MMA for a long time and has faced many tough opponents, but as he gets older, his body may not work as well as it used to. The physical demand of fighting can wear down a person's performance over time. On the other hand, Jake Paul is younger, a lot younger actually, a whopping 12 years younger, and is still growing stronger. He's in his 20s, which is when people are usually at their physical peak. Being young gives Jake an advantage like being faster, having quicker reactions, and being able to recover faster after getting hurt. As fighters get old, their bodies become more prone to injuries, and it takes time for them to heal. Nate Diaz has been in many intense fights and has taken a lot of hits throughout his career. This can add up and make it harder for him to train and get ready for fights, especially against a younger opponent like Jake Paul, who hasn't faced the same wear and tear on his body. Timing and reflexes are also important in fighting. They help fighters dodge punches and counter with their strikes. While Nate Diaz has shown great timing and reflexes in his fights, these abilities can decline with age. As people get older, the reaction time tends to slow down a bit, making it harder to avoid getting hit and land accurate punches in return. Jake Paul's youth gives him an advantage because he has quicker timing and reflexes, which can make it harder for Nate Diaz to defend himself and counter effectively. A video recently came up showing Nate Diaz's boxing skills, and it seems that he looks susceptible to getting countered. But this was just him fighting on the pads, and we won't know until we actually see him in the ring. In addition to the factors discussed earlier, another crucial aspect that adds to the potential mismatch between Jake Paul and Nate Diaz is the significant difference in size and weight class between the two fighters. Jake Paul competes in the cruiserweight division, which is typically contested at a weight limit of 200 pounds. On the other hand, Nate Diaz typically fights in the welterweight division, which has a weight limit of 170 pounds. So Jake has a clear advantage when it comes to weight. When it comes to both of the fighters' professional boxing records, Jake currently has a professional boxing record of 6 wins and 1 loss, and stands at 6 feet and 1 inch tall, and has a 76-inch reach. Diaz, on the other hand, has 0 professional boxing fights, and stands at 6 feet and has a 76-inch reach. As you can clearly see here that Jake has 7 fights of experience to Diaz, who has 0 when it comes to the aspect of boxing. The matchup between Jake Paul and Nate Diaz does not seem to be a fair one for Diaz. There are several reasons for this. Firstly, Jake Paul has dedicated himself to the sport of boxing and has gained valuable experience and technique. In contrast, Nate Diaz has primarily focused on MMA and may not have the same level of refined boxing skills. The difference in boxing experience gives Paul an advantage in terms of knowledge and proficiency in the sport. Age also plays a significant role in this matchup. Nate Diaz, being older and have gone through numerous intense fights in his career, is not at the same physical peak as Jake Paul. Paul, being younger in his 20s, possesses advantages such as speed, reaction time, and resilience, which could pose challenges for Diaz. The weight class difference is also another factor that tilts the scale in Paul's favor. Paul competes in the cruiserweight division, which allows him to carry more size and power compared to Diaz, who fights in the welterweight division. The weight advantage gives Paul an edge in terms of strength. Considering all these factors, it becomes apparent that the proposed matchup between Jake Paul and Nate Diaz may not be fair to Diaz. While Diaz is undoubtedly a skilled and experienced fighter, the differences in boxing experience, age, and weight class create an uneven playing field. Ultimately, I think most fans knew that this fight would be an unfair matchup for Diaz, but at the end of the day, the decision to enter the fight rests with the fighter and their teams. I wonder what you guys think about this. Let me know in the comments below. Do you guys think this is a good fight for Diaz, or just a way for Jake Paul to build his confidence back up? Let me know in the comments below. I will try and post more consistently. I just had to deal with finals in school. But yeah, other than that, guys, I hope you guys enjoy the video, and peace.